Welcome back to day one of the Quake World Championship. It is now time to focus because Kilson takes the stage and he's going up against a player that we got to see earlier in round number one. That's dandaking. Joining me once again here on the desk, we've got Flea and Lethal Gentlemen. We are seeing certainly someone who can claim to be a champion here in Quake Champions, someone who has done remarkably well this season, and versus now a new challenger coming in who's already kind of made his own mark, defeating Garpy to get here. But welcome back, and excited to now just jump in and kind of talk a little bit about this matchup.
Yeah, there's a lot to say, a lot to talk about, especially the history of both these players. But let's start with Kilson first. I think we have to talk about the improvements he's made compared to the last 12 months. We always know him as that guy with incredible combat skills, hyper aggressive down to a T. And his adaptation, I feel like the adaptation has actually improved quite a lot as well over the last 12 months. But the only problem or the only little niche I worry about is the fact that there's very small moments where he's been a bit off-key in an offline environment. But he seems to be so comfortable at this stage compared to what he was like 12 months ago.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he's able to naturally rectify that.
I'll tell you what, Flea, I'm going to get your comments, but why don't we hear from the man himself? We got to sit down for a little interview with Kilson before the event began, and let's see if, he has confidence going into this finals.
My gamer tag is Big Kilson. My seed is #1. I have been playing Quake for about almost 20 years now. My favorite champion is Nyx, and I like her mobility around the maps. Like, some maps are very built up for her, I feel like. And also her ability is very good and useful and can be super powerful. My favorite weapon always, almost since day one, you can say, is the ray gun. I'm on seed 1. I mean, that means a lot already. So I beat most of the guys throughout the stage. And overall things have been going quite well. I mean, I also put a lot of work into this to make it happen. But yeah, I'm just glad everything worked according to plan so far. It feels really good to be back at a LAN event, meeting each other again. Like, I mean, some of these players are became like really good friends actually throughout the years, and we know each other for such a long time. Especially that others also did compete already in past Quake versions. So I miss it a lot. It will mean a lot for me to take home the world champion here. I missed my opportunity to take it home last time, so I would like to take it home this time. Biggest chances to win the championship, I would say. I mean, you can always count on Rafa to get very far throughout the tournament. But also, I think Wenger has been stepping things up. So and then Razy, it depends a little. Like, sometimes there's some creativity missing in his gameplay, but he's also shaping himself up. So us four, literally, any one of us can take it any day.
When you've got someone like Kilson who can name 4 other players that he think have the potential of going very far in this tournament, that says an awful lot. Flea, going back to you, thinking about Kilson, right? We've talked a lot about his storyline this season. Last season, still performed very well, was dealing with issues with his eyes. You kind of need those in order to play the best game of Quake that you want to play. But clearly showing, the full, maybe, I don't know, the final form of Kilson. I doubt it yet, but your thoughts here.
Oh, absolutely. Kilson is looking supremely powerful going into this. Seed 1, he mentioned it himself, right? He has lost just one matchup in the entire season. That was against Wenger. And as you mentioned yourself, Wheat, Kilson is a champion, right?
Yeah.
He won the very kickoff of the Quake Pro League back in 2019, won stage 3 of that season as well. So this is one of the few players who not only managed to get himself the belt once, but twice. So this player is extremely powerful, and just looking at his track record, he is set to go far.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about his opponent, right? We got a chance to talk about dandaking earlier. We saw him defeat Garpy in what was a pretty phenomenal 2-0 for him, and it was like, boom, here's your reward. You're going up against the #1 seed Kilson. So a rough go, but probably one of the best trials by fire that you could possibly ask for here at the World Championship.
Yeah, I think to start off with how, how sort of Dan is, he's got very strong fundamentals. He's at a top 8 at a Quake back in 2017, but he was also a really good Quake Live player back in 2010, 2011. Now, I think some people kind of forget about that, forget about how strong he was back then, and it seems like he's still be able to continue his progress. We saw against Garpy, where I don't really see any signs of nerves or not too confident anyway. You can see that from his aggression, his aim skill, his tracking. Everything is still there, but it's just a matter of he can do that against Kilson, because he's got to try and equal that hyper aggression that comes out from Kilson, as well as that adaptation, of course.
Yeah, you also got to, remember that playing from the ANZ region, probably anything is better than that pick that you're getting. So really loving it here on land. Gentlemen, let's take a look at the picks and bans for this matchup. It could determine what you all think about this one, but we're going to be doing Corrupted Keep and then Ruins, and should we need it, going to Awoken. Take your pick. Any of you want to throw out thoughts on what we see for our champions' picks and bans?
Slash on map 2. That is going to be a spectacle. We're definitely going to see Kilson bring out that champion. He mentioned himself, Nyx is one of his favorites, but look at that, he banned Nyx. Probably a case of, well, if I can't be guaranteed that I have her myself, I'm just going to make sure that my opponent can't play her against me. Now, map 1, Keep, we're getting pretty standard matchup. Ranger versus Strock. Strock so powerful with that Beaker because there's no rail on the map. Then map 2, Slash versus Visor. Speed versus Information. And then lastly, Awoken, the Doomslayer double jump. So useful versus the Death Knight. Now, it's interesting how often we're seeing him already today.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about how it seemed like Kilson was the one who was helping to usher Death Knight back into the meta a bit. And, even on Awoken, that's interesting. But, Harry, your thoughts?
Well, again, Kilson banning Veil every single matchup, every single week. Looks like the trend's going to continue coming into this kind of environment, no matter what opponent it is. But the good thing on the side of dandaking is the fact that there is going to be no Deep Embrace, and of course we do have Ruins there anyway, but one of two is going to have to ban at some point. But at least that way he knew that what does he prefer in terms of how he wants to play? Does he want to play him on Ruins, or does he want to play on Deep Embrace? Of course, he prefers Ruins. He's got a little bit more space to work with. Kilson's done some immaculate comebacks in the past in those Kilson versus Avik matchups in Ruins. It's always a treat to watch them two go at it, but I have to see how he will do it, especially with the Slash in the hands of Kilson. But going to the last one, Doomslayer is pretty much the meta pick there for Awoken. We see it time and time again, but we were talking before with the Death Knight. I think it's a good pick considering he banned the Athena straight away, which is understandable due to the verticality and how difficult it can be to contend with Athena, especially when you're weak or getting chased upon you. But should be an interesting start. It's all going to be about the mechanics and fundamentals going into this first map.
Yeah, and just one quick note thrown out there. Yeah, we did see Kilson ban Veil, but we are going to get to a point in the tournament in which, you're not going to have the luxury of just banning out some of those guys. So we'll have to see how that will play out. But understandably, in these early rounds, play what you're most certain about, what you're most confident in, etc. Certainly a good strategy to go forward. So now that we got the picks and bans, is it safe to say that you both expect the #1 seed here for the Season 3 finals to move on, or do you think that dandaking is in a position to maybe shake things up a little bit?
I'm expecting a 2-0 for Kilson. Yeah, I mean, you just can't bet against the man at this point, right? dandaking, clearly a veteran in his own right. He's put up a tremendous performance against Garpy earlier today, but Kilson, that's another beast altogether.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same too. I'm not going to beat around the bush in any way, shape or form. I'll probably say if dandaking keeps the scores respectable, at least then it'll keep him, give a confidence boost if he does drop down to the loser bracket.
Yeah, great points on both sides, and I think there's going to be a lot of folks that are very excited. Kilson's been one of those players that has been very public about his scrims leading up here to the finals. You could go onto his channel and watch him streaming those live versus some of the best players here in the league. So curious how this one will play out, but it looks like the match is opening up here and staging and getting ready. So gentlemen, I'll let you take it from here. Enjoy yourselves, and good luck.
Thank you very much indeed, Sophly. Get to see dandaking once again. Second time out of the third series, can't really complain there. And it's all about how Dan's going to perform in this matchup. We know it's, from his region, it's pretty damn difficult to get the best practice possible. We know there's a lot of community tournaments over in Australia and New Zealand in terms of how he can perform. Notably in terms of his past placements, we've got to remember back in the day in 2017 when he qualified through the NA side with a 300 ping. Literally, that was so long ago. And of course, with one of the Quake cons in, I think it was 2010 or 2011, where he did get a top 8 placement. So definitely someone not to underestimate here going into this matchup, and we're going to be starting things off from Kilson's POV to exactly how he's going to try and establish some kind of dominance here.
Heavy delayed by a massive amount already. That's 10 seconds and it still hasn't been picked up. Kilson clearly going into this with a game plan, will finally secure it, and this is of course to offset the respawn timers in the hopes that he gets a leg up over his opponent now and can then string both of them together.
Rude coming straight on very aggressively there from Kilson, and now needs to try and back away, but I know it's going to help a tad, but not a huge amount as Dan will get the first frag here as he managed to pick up the Mega perfectly. Q comes up with the LG there, should be able to make it a second if he can, and keeps up straight, misses a couple of shots with the heavy machine gun, but the damage has already been done. He's managed to keep him at bay, he's able to pick up another light, but it's already been taken, so just needs to try and keep his distance and work around the heavy machine gun.
Oh, good rocket. That opens up a lot for Kilson. He's going to drop down, doesn't have LG yet, so he has to close the distance. Will this work out for him? No! 4 points of health. dandaking clutching on for dear life. Might be able to make a move on Mega. Yeah, he sees Kilson coming through the rocket. Should be able to drop down, no issues whatsoever. And now 5 seconds before Heavy. Is he going to make a push for it? Doesn't have any armor to his name, so is just going to surrender that item and content himself with those 2 frags that he has.
That second frag shouldn't have even been taken anyway. It was a huge surprise there, I think, from a lot of us. It seemed to be where a lot of assumptions were made. A lot of us probably thought, okay, this is where Kilson should be able to equalize and then progress with that Mega. But instead, the defense from Dan has been so good, and the recovery rotation on top of that. The Heavy will be up in the next few seconds. He's going to move up straight away. Kilson will get the first frag to his name. And there we have a Heavy is still up, but of course, battle of attrition, he's going to be looking to pick up the light. Then the Heavy just to grabs a little bit more dominance in terms of his stack. Gets a good rocket, 75, go bounce in the air, but we're going to get a trade. Good stuff from Dan to make sure to close that last frag out, and just a couple minutes in play.
Pretty sure I just heard Kilson go, ah, the way that ended up. Now Dan doesn't have the LG, Kilson does. He's got to be careful taking those fights at mid-range. He's going to fall back on Heavy for now, but Kilson might not let him take it for free. No, he will. Just going to stay on his side of the map. Both players just waiting for an opportunity right now. Kilson managed to stop the bleeding, bring it back to a 1-frag game. Still a very close match so far. Neither player really getting the upper hand.
No, not at all, but these rockets from Dan have been so good from a defensive level. Kilson has to back away once again, so Dan really showing some true promise in. Nothing's spiraled out of control. His defense has been solid. He's made the right reads, the right rotations. Keeping Kilson guessing in terms of the timing, so delaying bits and pieces here and there, but it might get got attaches with Kilson standing his ground with the rockets, but Dan travelling in so far doesn't seem to be too bad. Just trying to keep his distance here, so at least the rockets have a decreased chance to help him out by any means. He's going to dive into the red room. Kilson trying to get away once again, but yeah, Dan is performing so good in this first map.
Looking at the ability usage, though, I do have to say that I'm thinking that Kilson's doing far better at using the orb than damage has at using the Strong, or the Peeker, right?
Yeah.
Whenever he's used it, he's taken quite a bit of damage himself, or hasn't been able to open up the map much. But Kilson's orb has been very effective. It's gotten him in really good positions, even grabbed him a kill earlier. So, ability-wise, Kilson is outperforming his opponent, but still, the frags are going in favor of the Australian.
And again now, Dan just doesn't put too much pressure on as of yet. Just going to pick up the Mega first and then try and get his peak at ASAP. The Heavy is up, so Kilson will be able to go to this without too much trouble. Just double checking, just trying to get a bit of tri-volt damage there and a bit of info before he picks it up. But it's also delayed it by a good 5-7 seconds, so Dan's going to have to guess exactly when it's going to appear later on, depending on how close it was with the audio cues. Makes up in the next 7 seconds. Dan's in the prime position to go for it, or at least rain some rockets down there. Good use, but as he's doing that, the orb straight on up and does take him out here. Flea picks up the Mega as well. Perfect timing. Light is there, but we'll have to give that up to Kilson. But at the end of the day, he takes the frag, he managed to get the Mega. He's in a good spot now to pick up this Heavy.
Nice LG as well. Kilson dropping down to his doom. Also interesting to note, Lethal, is just how little the heavy machine gun has been used so far. Typically, that's one of the key weapons on this map, right? Assessing your opponent from a distance since there's no rail. But at this point, there's been 100 damage shared between these two players when it comes to that weapon. So that just shows that this has been quite up close and personal in most of these fights.
Yeah, it's a really good point you've made. It's not something you see every day, but with these two being so aggressive, but at the same time, they've been really keeping their distance. So it's a bit of a shock to me as well, the fact that the heavy machine gun hasn't been used, as you said, but he reached in with the Orb Master. Take down Dan there, now just trailing behind by that 2-frag deficit. Gets a little bit of damage done with that Pigger. Drop it down and see if we can increase the amount of damage done. It's going to see if it can at least rotate round from above and just catch him off guard, but sadly, it was a good thought process, but Dan was already rotating back around from another side. So at least that way, let's see exactly how he's going to do this rotation. Picks up the heavy. This is where things can be a little bit more difficult for Dan in terms of his position and what he's going to do with his weaponry in his arsenal. But we've seen some good defense from him in the past. We can see if he can continue that, depending on his weapon selection.
This is the first time in the map that one player has really gotten consistent control, right? K1llsen being able to secure both heavy and mega without losing too much of a stack in between. This could be a turning point in the match. Yes, Dan has a 2-frag lead. Might dwindle as we speak. Indeed, drops down to just 1 point. And now K1llsen, he's got a lot of momentum behind him. He's got both of the items going in his favor. He's got the item time, he's got the weapons to work with too, but his stack might not last forever. Can he clutch it? He will, just before Mega spawns as well. Critical time to secure that frag.
And this is the problem you see for Kilson as well. Like, if Dan does try and get away when he's weak, he normally just orbs in straight away because he knows with the mobility, Dan's just going to get out of there so quickly. It's going to be very difficult to try and finish up any of those guys, even with the heavy machine gun. But a few minutes left. Kilson has taken the lead for the first time in this matchup. Realises he's still definitely below him. And now with the LG, Dan wants to really put on a performance, and he has, Dan, tied things up. Not really too happy about that, considering the circumstances. Dan has picked up the Mega. 3 minutes left in play, and Dan's in a really good spot right now.
He absolutely is. Heavy is about to spawn. Kilson has a better positioning, but he's got to make that drop down first. Here we go. The peeker finally coming through with some big damage, but that rocket, that is going to negate most of it. And Kilson still keeping himself in fighting shape, as Mega will be the next major point of contention. dandaking now on the hunt. He's got that superior mobility. Orb isn't up for another 20 seconds. He wants to make good use of this. Mega just spawned. Kilson is just going to let it go. He knows that with just over 2 minutes left on the clock, he doesn't want to risk this snowballing against him, because that is one of the things that Keith is most known for. It's a very snowball-heavy map, and 1 frag can easily turn into 2 or 3.
Oh, that rocket was so close. You can talk about the stack advantages. It was the first time Kilson had it. Now it's the first time Dan's got this kind of considerable advantage, even though he had that nice little frag lead earlier on. 2 minutes left in play. Kilson just standing his ground, waiting for him, or daring for him to run into potentially some of these directs, but it's backed away. Remember, we're still all tied up. It's Dan's court now to try and at least pursue Kilson and seal this first map. But we'll find him as Kilson's actually dropping down from the LG area, but good rocket there from Kilson just to add a little bit more chip to keep his distance. But the problem is now Dan just picked up the heavy. Took a little bit of damage from the heavy machine gun, but at least he's got the rocket to push on straight away. Just hiding around that heavy machine gun area. He's got eyes on him now. Will he be able to take him? Just continuing to keep his distance. He's kind of feel like he's playing scared, but at the same time wants to make sure he'll 100% secure his kill before going in.
Looking at some of the statistics, dandaking significantly out-damaging his opponents. Also the one with a slight lead in terms of item control. Will get himself both Mega and Heavy back-to-back, and now Kilson really has to play this evasive game. He's waiting for that good burst of LG, nice rocket, big amount of unreturned damage to try and turn things around. But this is a beautiful trap by Dan, and he should be able to secure himself the frag. 45 seconds left, gets caught off the spawn. This is so bad for the German. Might drop another frag here. Yes, he will. Oh! Is dandaking going to secure map 1?
He could, he definitely could. There's no reason why he can't at the moment, as Kilson's going to try and pursue in any way, shape or form and be over-aggressive and just try and tackle him down, but look at the stack Dan has at the moment. He's been out-damaging his opponent left, right, and center. And the best thing about how dandaking's playing, he's not been too desperate. He's not been over-aggressive. He's not been taking very silly risks here. Good rocket, trying to orb on him, but look at the stack difference again here, Flea. Just daring for him to go for that TP. Time is already ticking. 8 seconds left remaining. This is going to be the first map going to dandaking, and who would have thought it? We talked about how to his practice regimen and how he's going to go into his competition to see how he'll perform, considering what he's in. But the first map goes in favor of dandaking, and spoke about his placements in the past. He's definitely not someone you want to look upon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think chat's channel points are probably going to be in shambles. People have lost their entire funds to this, I believe. What an upset to start this series off with. We mentioned it at the start, right? dandaking, when he does make it to LAN, he shows up big time, right? DreamHack Winter 2017, he makes it top 8. DreamHack Winter 2018, he makes it top 12. Very respectable positions for someone who's come all the way from Australia and who hasn't been in the Quake Pro League at all.
No, he hasn't at all. It's like I said before, he's only had some good placements, a couple of top 8 placements back in 2017 and back in 2010 and 2011. So he's definitely not someone you should mess with, in all fairness. He's not someone where you should underestimate by any means, shape or form. I just feel like his mechanics and fundamentals is just really, really solid. I didn't see any time where he got a bit too desperate and didn't really do any miraculous plays or anything too unorthodox. Just standard Quake to a certain degree, but also at the same time, he was very on point in terms of the damage he was dealing and good item control overall. So, you know, some people say it can be quite standard how he was playing, but also at the same time, just waited for Kilson to make those first mistakes, and he caught him off quite a few times on quite a few occasions.
His item control really stood out to me on his first matchup against Garpy as well, right? Garpy dropped a few balls here and there when it came to the item timing, but that is something that dandaking has nailed to a T. Now, if we look at the statistics, a real big standout here is the LG damage. 1700 for dandaking versus just 700 by Kilson, and I think that just shows how much control he had also over the weapon spawns, denying access to the LG. And then when it came down to the fight, he was consistently out-damaging Kilson. Now, the only thing that worried me slightly, still kind of does, is the use of his ability, right? Towards the end, it improved, yes, but in that first half of the match, I feel like the Peeker usually hurt him more than it helped, whereas Kilson was very consistent with the orb. So, map 2, this should be Ruins, where we're gonna see Kilson on the Slash, and dandaking on the Visor might shape up to be very different.
I think you made a very interesting point as well, and it's the fact that he actually rectified that halfway through the map. Some people will just continue to make that mistake until the map ends. It's like, oh, I've just got to go back and watch and see exactly what I was doing wrong. But yeah, he rectified that, you know, 3 or 4 minutes in. We saw great peeker usage. We saw the amount of damage he was dealing with that every single time. And yeah, guys at home, who would have thought it? dandaking currently 1 map ahead against your #1 seed Kilson, but you know, this is going to be a different kettle of fish with the Slash versus the Visor. Of course, at least has the piercing sight to keep tabs on where Kilson's going to be, but Kilson needs to really keep a close eye on that, on the hourglass, especially around the courtyard area. There's a good rotation everyone normally makes for those hourglasses, especially around that heavy jump pads and of course the courtyard, just to keep them on track. But I would love to know your thoughts going into this. Do you reckon that Dan could maybe take this 2-0 and send Kilson into losers, or do you reckon Kilson will then think to himself, right, okay, I'm going to have to, you know, show some of my cards here, if so early on, and then just take him down and go into a third and final map?
I mean, it could definitely happen, right?
Yeah.
dandaking has been playing out of his mind. Kilson, not a flawless map 1 by any means, right? So it could definitely go in favor of dandaking 2-0. However, just looking at the picks, I would still favor Kilson on this map. Visor is very powerful on Ruins because it is one of the larger maps, right? So using that piercing sight gives you more information than you might on a smaller map. Plus, there's also less chance of your opponent hearing you use the ability. Now, on the other hand, you've got Slash, so fast, the fastest champion in the game, and that works really well on these open areas like Ruins. I think one of the things that Kilson is going to have to keep in mind is to use that plasma trail consistently. He wants to make sure that those vials don't all go in favor of dandaking, because if he can collect all of them, he's going to have that piercing side up more often than not, and that could be a serious problem.
Yeah, Dan hasn't got the mobility factor, but at least he's got the piercing sight to try and secure some of his frags. But it's like I said, Kilson has got the agility to speed, the mobility to try and take this, but he's got to be very careful, especially if he's getting spawn killed or spawn rolled in any way. It's going to be very, very tough indeed, but Dan currently 1-0 in the lead against Kilson. This is a best of 3. We're going to map number 2, starting things off with dandaking, and already a very aggressive start from Kilson, just flying on forward as he's had the rail, and Dan just trying to keep his distance, but it was a good return rail back.
Kilson railable right now. Dan has a pretty good idea of where he's at. Oh, that bubble that Kilson just picked up, rather, put him above the railable threshold. But he's hurting right now, 20-something health. Dan can't connect with the kill shot, has to fall back on this small armor of his own. Now Heavy is the first item to spawn, and just like in the previous map, we're starting with an offset between the item timings, but it looks like it will be dandaking to be the first to secure Heavy on this rotation, whereas Kilson is now rushing for Mega.
Certainly is indeed. His piercing sight's going to come up any second now. Uses it instantly just to confirm the whereabouts of Kilson. He's got an incredible stack to work with, and he could trap him here in Courtyard Flea if he gets the opportunity. As Kilson does hit the first rail, doesn't hit the second, but it does mean that it'll give Dan a chance to back away and rotate back around. But accusing knees, he knows it's down below, going for that next Heavy. Meg's up in the next 10 seconds. Items are quite segregated, so it means that Kilson can definitely challenge this Mega as he sees fit. And the problem is, will Dan be able to stop this? That's going to be the key issue.
I like how dandaking is playing this against Slash. One of the downsides of playing such a fast champion is that sometimes the speed dominates you, right? You fly around the corners faster than you know, and before you even realize it, you're out halfway into a room, and you are screwed. So dandaking is playing this slow, disciplined, reserved, setting up, letting Kilson come to him, knowing that he's got that stack advantage. But that first fight, that did not go the way that he wanted, and Kilson landing some spectacular rockets to secure himself the first kill of map 1, or 2 rather.
Certainly did indeed, and Kilson's continuing with that stack advantage and the high ground. Just waiting to find out what Dan is going to do first of all. He's going to have a look around to see if he can find him. He does. Hits the first rail. He's going to try and go for the second, taking his time, as you can see, to make sure to do as much damage as you can physically can before heading towards that next Mega. Might trap him in the courtyard here, depending on the circumstances. He's behind his pillar. Good first rail. That was a huge amount of chipping need required. Hits another one. He is railable. Will he be able to catch him, go for the Mega? Oh, caught the side a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Kilson does get away with his life intact, and of course the Mega.
And then once again slowing things down, just waiting at one of these center points of the map for Kilson to come flying around the corner. But I think that the German representing Team Big has kind of caught on to that by now, knows exactly how Dan is approaching this, and might slow down when he doesn't know exactly where his opponent is at. Now a lot of this match so far has come down to the railgun, both players landing a respectable amount of damage. But Dan, unable to make a push for the Mega, is just going to drop down to Heavy instead, trying to get a lockdown on these entryways.
At some point, Dan is going to have to hit at least 1 or 2 rails to break this rotation that Kilson's consistently making, but that's not going to help at all. He's going to try back away again. Misses that first initial rail, going up the jump pad. That could have been a 2-0 lead, but this could be the time to increase it. But that was a great rail there from Dan to keep himself in it and keep himself in this matchup and just be able to stay alive. But it's going to boost on up as Kilson does pick up the next Mega. Heavy's up in the next 10 seconds. And Dan, now he's picked up that light in the courtyard, he's got a much better chance going towards his Heavy.
Dan currently hitting 45% rail, but I'm sure it feels like a lot more than that when you're Kilson, right? The rail shots that he is hitting are the important ones. When it comes down to these fights where both players really just try to make a move for a big item, he can deny pretty much anything that Kilson's getting out of it, even if his opponent does secure the item. Now there's a lot of time between the majors, right? Around 15 seconds. And we're kind of falling into a set pattern here. Kilson takes away the Mega, then tries to get an exit rail, then drops down onto Heavy to be the first one to get this one, but it won't work out this way. Kilson bounces him up slightly with the rockets, and that's all he needs to land that follow-up rail and get himself another frag up.
Yeah, Dan got a little bit impatient, wanted to go for the Heavy early instead, but Kilson, the one time he did, actually creeped up onto him on the Heavy jump pad. That's going to make it free for Kilson, as things are not escalating out of control as of yet, but it's going to get even more tough as this game progresses, especially in terms of time with the speed and mobility of the Slash. But we're just at the halfway stage, still an opportunity for him to bring this back, or at least keep the score respectable. And it's funny, we were at the start, before the series even began, we were saying, at least Dan keep the scores respectable, it could be a 2-0. And the fact that he's still got this 1-map lead is just incredible. But the way Kilson's playing right now, seems to be back on form in terms of his peak performance, and definitely one that takes us to a third and final map.
But this is worrying for the Australian, though. Just look at the score difference, right? 4 frags really isn't all that much, but on a larger map like Ruins, where you are significantly outsped and outmaneuvered by your opponent, if you have to try and chase down a Slash when you've got nothing to work with in terms of mobility, get 3 frags in those final few minutes, that can be borderline impossible. So it's very important that Dan just stops the bleeding right here, keeps it down to 3 frags at the most, and then slowly starts making that comeback happen now that he still has time.
Totally agree. There's very little room for error here at this point, as you will have to make riskier and riskier plays as time progresses though. 4 minutes left. Dan still trailing behind by 3 frags. Hasn't got the stack, but Dan just daring him to drop down this heavy jump pad. He's done it once before. He's thinking he may do it again. He misses the first rocket. Doesn't do too much for the second, but the third will at least do a little bit more to help him. But the problem is going straight into the trail, and then it means that Kilson now up 5-1. Very convenient for him.
That piercing sight couldn't have been used at a worse moment. He just had him on lockdown even without the ability, and then the moment that he goes to use it, Kilson drops and gets the upper hand from the get-go. So that is tragic for dandaking, as Kilson extends his lead. 4 frags up. And the German also full control of both of the items. Dan, he's got a decent stack to work with, right? He's at a base 100-100, plus he's got the weapons that he needs too. But what can he do to thwart Kilson? What can he do to throw off the champ? And look at these rockets, 265 damage! Still isn't enough! 265! And Kilson still walks away with the frag. That is obscene.
The direct rail combo and then hitting 2 rails on spawn straight afterwards. Yeah, it's going to pack a wallop to your confidence and your morale after that first map going into the second one now. 2 minutes 45 left. Dan still has a little bit of time, but we have to be real here. It's so tough to at least try and tackle down a Slash, especially with some of the top tier Slash players we have on the circuit. With 2.5 minutes left remaining. But the only thing Dan can do now is take some very risky but potentially rewarding plays, but Dan realizes that it's probably out of the realms of possibility in this matchup. It's going to miss a couple of rounds, but at the end of the day, the damage has already been done. Dan right now is probably already thinking about what to do in this third round.
Looking at the statistics, it's very clear. Kilson out-damaging his opponent, plus holding on to far more of the major items. 12 versus opponent 7. And one of the most interesting things here, Lethal, is the use of the LG by dandaking, or rather, the lack thereof. dandaking has done 50 points of damage with the lightning gun. That's it. It basically hasn't factored into his game plan whatsoever on Ruins.
Yeah, it's interesting because the LG was his best mate in the previous map. This time round, it's not his mate anymore. So I think they may have to have some talks and discuss like why that is at this stage. As Kilson just diving on in from the T-junction, but it's like I said, it doesn't matter. The damage has already been done. 90 seconds, 7 frags. Yeah. Not going to happen at all, especially against a Slash player, especially if it's going to be Kilson as well with all the chip damage with the rail he's going to use to keep his opponent back. But it was a close affair to begin with at the very start. Dan was just trying his best to at least break that rotation of item control, which Kilson was making every single time. Of course, that drop down from the heavy jump pad to take Dan off guard as he was approaching that heavy was not something Dan expected, but at the same time, it was the only time he actually prepped early to go for the heavy, which was a little bit unfortunate for him. But some good directs there from Dan, but Kilson just, as you do, just jumps out and finishes him off with a beautiful rail once again. Heavy's up in the next 5 seconds, but it's like I said before, good start, but it's a shame that it ended this way in the second map.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan had a really solid game plan going into this. Slow it down, let Kilson come to you, right? Wait with the rockets, because that's one of the weapons that have been working so well on this LAN for everyone. And then hope that your opponent makes mistakes, that they let the speed dominate their game plan rather than the other way around. And for a few minutes it was working well, but then at some point Kilson just got the best of him and turned one frag into multiple, got full control. And at that point you're in a really bad spot because you're not even able to get the unholy trinity of weapons. You can't get everything that you need. No rail, no rockets, no LG, or you're missing 1 or 2 of them. And by the time that you're even getting one, Kilson's already on top of you with a better stack. And that's exactly how this went down.
Certainly did indeed. A much more of a convincing performance there from Kilson, taking that second map 11-2. So it does mean we're all tied up here. going to map number 3 very shortly between dandaking and Kilson. And we saw from there the struggles from Dan. I think you made a good point with both players barely touching the LG. I think there was a lot of sneaky plays, I'd like to say. Like we saw that from the heavy jump pad earlier on. They're both just trying to contest the heavy in many ways than one. They were always keeping their distance. Yeah. And I think that's probably why the LG wasn't used that much. And don't get me wrong, we love a bit of LG here and there. But the problem is with Corrupted Keep, it's understandable why it was used so much in comparison. Kilson didn't really use it as much either. It was more favouring the Rockets. But going to his third and final map then, Flea, I know you said 2-0. I said 2-0 as well, in all fairness. But how do you think Dan will do in this next match? Do you reckon he'll be able to recover and reset his mental fortitude going into this and just play with the amazing mechanics and fundamentals he had in that first map? Or do you feel like Kilson is just getting into the swing of things now and should be able to seal the deal?
I mean, Dan has been part of the scene long enough that he will be in control of his nerves, right? So I'm not expecting him to let this affect him to an obscene degree. But let's just go back to the basics real quick. Let's just look at the facts. Map 3, Awoken. Right, that's one of the smaller maps that we're jumping into. It will be Kilson running the Doomslayer. So once again, lethal Kilson will be having that mobility and speed advantage, whereas Dan is running the Death Knight. And that is just so interesting to see, because I remember not all that long ago, Death Knight was basically the champion that no one picked unless you absolutely had to. It wasn't until the grand finals, best of 7, where every other option had been done that you went for the Death Knight. But now, we've already seen him in action earlier, and we're immediately getting the DK out again. So that is going to make for a very interesting matchup, and I'm not sure how Kilson is going to approach that.
Funny you just said that. It gives me that Game 7 vibe between Rafa and Razy when you had to use the Death Knight deep embrace. That's the vibe I kind of got there. But Death Knight's an incredible champion now. But against Doomslayer, like I said, a heavy meta pick, I think it's safe to say, on Awoken. And people got to remember at home that Corrupted Keep is probably one of the worst maps statistically from Kilson outside Vale. But then again, whenever do we see him play Vale? Barely ever, considering the amounts of banners. So we haven't got barely any stats set. But CK is definitely, on Corrupted Keep, definitely one of the maps which Kilson doesn't favour statistically. He doesn't really, he kind of underperforms against especially a lot of the top tier players. So it's probably why dandaking was able to abuse his mechanics and fundamentals there. But going to this one on Awoken, definitely the most picked map in the Pro League. But I'd love to know your thoughts going to this. We know that the Death Knight can cause a few issues, especially prepping the items. But what's your thoughts overall? Do you feel like Kilson should be able to seal it here, or do you reckon the mechanics and fundamentals will come out in play for Dan once more?
I mean, we know that one of the things that Kilson likes to do the most is to just cement himself on a center part of the map and just log down the entire flow, all of the movement. And Awoken, especially when you're playing Doomslayer, which has that double jump that gives you so many ways to get up into that spot, allows him to play that style of his to perfection. So I do think that Kilson still has it in the back if he makes sure not to get too close where that Death Knight's Flame Strike can really stick it to you.
Yeah, it's going to definitely cause him some troubles, which Dan has already started doing, really, since the first map with all feathers in the start of this series. If you guys are just joining us, all the series table will be a best of 3. It's currently 1-1 between Kilson and dandaking. And dandaking really showing some great progress overall. I said it before the series, could potentially be a 2-0, but don't underestimate him considering his past performance. And as he shouldn't, because it's now currently 1-1, as one of his players will be going straight into the losers bracket, going straight away with the Berserk to go straight for the Mega early and the Light. And this is a very quick start here for Kilson. Good start strategy.
Happy that this is the first game of the day that isn't a 2-0, right? I'm happy to see it. We're going all the way to the third and final map. Still on Kilson's point of view. Let's see what Dan can do. So far, dandaking only really has the railgun and the super shoddy to work with. No LG, no rockets. So all he's got is to fight at a distance. Now Kilson, of course, is well aware of this, tries to counter it. Bit of tribal chip damage coming out right there. Both of the items are up, and Kilson, nice little push, but instantly repelled by 2 good rails to the face.
I've been really impressed with a lot of the rails from a lot of his players here today. Compared to what you normally see, but the Flame Strike comes out, does a decent amount of damage here. Dan's got a quick stack to work with, but it did a fair amount of Tri-Bolt damage there. Don't think it's going to delay him too much, though. He's going to go back to that rail room, and the question is, does he want to go towards the Mega and go towards that choke point, or does he just want to play it safe and go for the heavy? It would make sense for him to go for the heavy here to have a GA agreement. But Kilson's just making absolutely sure, taking a lot of caution here before approaching some of these items.
Finally, Kilson gets his hands on that railgun, a critical weapon in map 2. Let's see what Ro16 can bring to the table now that he's got that tool of destruction firmly in his hands. Now both of the major items perfectly in sync. Kilson setting up near the heavy, hoping to get the upper hand here. Neither player is really aware of where their opponent is right now, and that is why they're playing it so slowly. No one wants to make the mistake. dandaking doesn't want to suddenly get damage from an unpredictable angle, and Kilson doesn't want to turn a corner and find themselves in the middle of a flame strike.
Both of them also trying to delay the items, and it's pretty much almost in sync. They've both had the same idea, just different positions, but in terms of positioning in the advantage department, Dan is going to be in a great spot, but still just checking all angles. He realizes that Kilson's playing it slow and steady, but Kilson also realizes that Dan's been consistently waiting for him to make the first mistake every single time, or almost every time anyway, depending on the stack advantage. So it does look like he backs away, goes for the heavy, looking to at least pursue him top mid, but the problem is doesn't really get much damage done or much info, but he knows he's there. That's going to be beautiful. 90 damage there from that last tri-bar. Picks up the light anyway. And Dan realizes that, yeah, he has to back away. He needs to re-rotate all the way back around to see if he can get another angle, or at least be on the offensive from a different part. But misses the flame strike. Some good tri-bolt, though, and does manage to get away. But the problem is that flame strike's going to be a fair while, depending on how many hourglasses he picks up in the next 30 seconds.
Just want to point out that Kilson has done more damage with the tri-bolt alone than every other weapon combined. That's really been his go-to so far. Yeah, Kilson making real good use of that weapon. I think it's changed by now after those 2 rockets, but really using it expertly. It's also such a versatile weapon. If you can stay at that perfect distance, it does more damage than a rocket to the face. So Kilson really closely focusing on his positions, trying to make the most out of that weapon. And of course, this is the final map, the decider. Both players careful. Neither wants to be the first to drop a frag, but it looks like it might very well be dandaking after those 2 big rails. And the first one will connect. Beautiful. Kilson getting the first kill.
Took nearly 4 minutes, but he got it in the end. Dan's defense has been immaculate, especially during the first map and this map as well. Good rocket though, should be able to clean him up here. Mega's up as well at the same time. It's going to try and get away, not going to happen, all tied up. As we're 4 minutes in, picks up the heavy. So at this stage, all he needs to do is just deny him some of his weapons, and he could be in for a real treat here in the potential to gain the lead.
Definitely some frustration from Kilson right there. Missing that rail. If he had connected that, it would have been 2-0 up, gotten Mega. Everything would have been going in his favor, but that one missed shot has given dandaking a lot of room to work with. Now Kilson doing such a good job at applying pressure, using that double jump to cut clean through the center of the map and stick it straight to dandaking, who does manage to pick up the heavy. Trying to sneak his way out of this room. He knows exactly where Kilson is at. He's got the high ground. Never a place where you want to be down below. Oh, click. No rockets to work with. dandaking has to get some more ammo.
Might be able to catch Kilson in this choke point. As he continues to spam, some decent damage, but the problem is it's going to be railable. Kilson finishes up, clearly notices this. Hits the first spawn rail as well. This is a great way to try and increase his lead and boost his confidence going into the second round, and he does. That's going to be a 2-frag lead here for Kilson, and established a bit more dominance here. Heavy is up currently at 66 from that previous tri-bolt. Going to try and rail him as well. Sadly misses the first one and the second, but at least it'll give Dan a little bit of room to breathe. As I say, that does hit the final one. And now this is where things could crumble here for Dan, depending on the circumstances.
I love how patiently Kilson approached that as well. He knew that dandaking was stuck. He knew that he had heavy behind him, and instead of rushing for the item, he just waited, saying, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna wait and see what you do, try and get an exit rail. I'm gonna do some damage no matter what, and I've got the heavy to fall back on, whereas you are stuck in a corner with nothing but LG. So very patient, very disciplined, good use of the rail, clutch too, because if he had missed that shot, that could have very easily turned out to be an unfortunate series of events for the German. And now Kilson, 4 frags up with 4 minutes left on the clock.
Still has time to work with, but you can see Kilson starting to feel it now. You've noticed it as he's progressed for the last couple of minutes. It's a little bit static to begin with, just due to how Dan was playing in terms of his style. But now he's got a few more frags to his name. You can see him to gain a bit more control here. Needs to back away, but can still fight for this Mega, of course. He's going to try and get a bit of rockets in, but yeah, it's just not going to happen. Kilson increases his lead, and this is looking much, much better. Dan is starting to fall apart a little bit over the last couple of minutes, but it's just the hyper-aggression coming out from Kilson. As soon as he's confident, he's got that morale boost he needs in order to be able to afford to take some of these risks due to the lead he has. That just spells danger with a capital D.
Kilson set up for the Mega very early, but he is able to do enough damage to keep dandaking at bay, at least for now. Now the Australian is going to be able to push in between those railgun shots, gets himself the Mega, but to quite a bit of damage in return. I think that Kilson now has already started to switch to a much more defensive play style. Lands right in the flame strike, though couldn't quite get the jump across because dandaking nailed him in midair. That railgun was enough to kill his momentum, send him spiraling down to his doom. And this is very possible for dandaking. 4 frags in 2.5 minutes. It is difficult, lethal, but we have seen crazier stuff go down on this map in the Quake Pro League.
We certainly have 60% rail coming out from Kilson so far. And we haven't really seen much rail usage in general with Dan. It's only fired 8. 2 minutes left in play. The shoe's on the other foot at the moment. Dan needs to at least trying to figure a way or an idea to try and close Kilson out. But with some of these missed shots, it's not going to do him any favours. Dan, though, misses one there, but I don't know if it's going to do too much as Kilson takes him out with the LG. 5 frag deficit. It's getting worse and worse at the moment. And sadly for Dan, the door is closing on this series. There's gets a couple of good shots here. Dan needs to back away once again, and it's going to be very tough indeed as Kilson's going to make this an 8 frag to his name. And I must say, Dan did put on an incredible performance in this series overall.
He sure did. I just don't really know what happened to his LG in these last 2 minutes. That one fight, Lethal, he did 2/3 of his damage with Lightning Gun for the entire 9 minutes. He had done barely over 100 points of damage with that weapon, and that is so clutch, because if you compare it to Kilson, Kilson's at 1,000. So that means that at these mid-level fights, Kilson was just dominating these encounters. And yes, dandaking was landing some rice nails, managed to get on top of his opponent quite a few times, secure a number of items, but ultimately, if you can't win consistently at these mid-range fights, you're in such a difficult spot.
Yeah, it's peculiar because I'm not too sure if it's due to the fact that he's been on a defensive most of the time, so of course the defensive rockets are going to play a huge part going into that. And Dan, I kind of feel like his combat skills have been pretty damn good, but even if he does lose out in this series, I feel like he could easily make a good run in the loser bracket, considering what we've seen so far when he played against Garfield in that first series of the day, and how he's been performing against Kilson in this series, especially how that first map went. But that's going to be GG all round. Kilson will be able to scrape by with that 2-1 victory in this series. But commiserations to Dan, we are going to continue seeing him in the loser bracket. I'm sure, considering what we saw there with his skill set and just the pedigree skill he had across the board, he should be able to at least make a little bit of a run, as we've already mentioned. But yeah, Kilson had a bit of a shaky start, but it's looking a lot better now.
Absolutely, that was a clear victory, yes, but it was a hard-fought one. Kilson absolutely had to push himself to the limit to take down dandaking. That first map, still quite the upset. Wheat, what do you think about this?
I mean, it was an exciting matchup to watch. We saw dandaking come out there in that first round and look really nice versus Garpy, and I think, I was walking through the studios, and I think every other player that is participating in this matchup was out there watching this one. And yeah, it was pretty interesting when that first map wrapped up and concluded. But, you think about a championship level Kilson, the adversity that he's been through as a competitor, and you have to respect his ability to say, hey, I lost that first map. Now I just know what I need to do, which is wrap up the next 2. Certainly, dandaking still gave him, I think, a great game. I felt like, personally, you got to see Kilson sort of find his comfort level. Of course, once the rail came out too, Then Ro16 started to appear. We certainly saw that, especially on Awoken. So great matchup. And again, if it's any indication, we said here from the beginning, with the challengers coming in, it makes for some really exciting potentials, some potential upsets. Didn't quite see that there, but I don't know. I mean, it will be interesting to chat with Kilson to find out if you know, there's disappointment of losing that map, or it's like, hey, Dandaking's a respectable opponent. You're going to win, you're going to lose. As long as you win the series, move forward, that's what you've got to do. So great stuff, and our first 2-1 of the day.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's definitely not something anyone would have predicted. Like I said before, channel points in terms of that. Probably lost quite a few in that first map, so I wouldn't be too surprised there. But Dan, we said it before, do not underestimate this guy. This guy's been performing so well in the past. There's no reason why we can't. We know there's some struggles in terms of the practice departments and the regimes. But in Australia and New Zealand, that kind of area, there's so many community tournaments there to keep themselves going, to keep it as competitive as possible.
Right.
It's going to help him out as well entirely, especially preparing for this event. So
yeah, I mean, I think any one of all the players you said that were watching, they are going to know that if they drop down to the lower brackets and they have to face dandaking, they have got a formidable opponent to have.
I'll be worried.
Oh, yeah, they should be. They should be.
That's probably why there's some studying going out there with all the players. So we'll keep you updated on all that. We are going to take a quick break. When we return, we've got a good news, bad news type situation here, as two teammates are going to go head-to-head against each other. Unfortunately, one's going to drop down to the lower while the other will advance on, but at least someone from that team will be moving forward. Who will it be, CNZ or will it be Dramus? We're going to find out when we return after this short break. Don't go away.